Welcome everyone to a very special Welcome Change. As you know, Welcome Change is a weekly series where we share the amazing stories of social entrepreneurs. Today is a very special one, first because it's the first live one that we do in our Welcome Change series, which makes it very special. Also because we are doing it from Bilbao city after 3 days, where we've been having a New Longevity Summit. We've convened around 150 people talking about how to build a new life, a new longevity, where it's not about elders, there's no discrimination, but a world where everyone can contribute. And there are many things that I would love to share and so much connected to your project, Ole. So maybe we can start, I can start presenting you. You present what is that you are doing, and then we connect it to the summit. Sounds good?
Yes.
Ole Kassow is a Soka fellow from Denmark with Cycling Without Age. And you can share, what is Cycling Without Age?
So Cycling Without Age is we're an NGO. We're a movement that we're present in quite a few countries now, but it's really about taking elders out of their nursing homes, out on a bike in their local community, in their city, to give them a chance to break the social isolation and very often the boredom of being stuck inside the four walls in a nursing home. And by doing so, we give them really a chance to live again.
And how did this start?
So it started really because I live in Copenhagen, and for those of you who've ever been to Copenhagen, you know that we are crazy about bikes. You know, they say that Norwegians are born with skis on, and we Danes are born with a bicycle between our legs. And so I was riding my bike to work one day, and I noticed this elderly gentleman. And at the same time, I also had a challenge from my colleagues to do a random act of kindness. And I decided that it had to be something with bikes, and it had to be something about someone who had lost their mobility, because my own dad was in a wheelchair all my childhood. So I decided that this man that I had noticed sitting on a bench, that I wanted to take him out for a bike ride. And then I found this old trishaw, like a box bike with a double seat in front. And I showed up at the local nursing home and rang the doorbell and offered my legs and me as a conversation partner to someone. And then I got this lady out for a bike ride, Gertrude, and we went out for about an hour. And I had the most amazing experience because I had been told that she had stopped talking. She was beginning to suffer from dementia, and very often what happens is that people they lose their language, or they become, they pull themselves back. But on that bike ride for 1 hour, she was talking nonstop and telling me all about her life and so on, and that really inspired me.
So you didn't offer your legs; you offered your heart.
Yeah,
no?
yeah.
And so you started there. How many cycling without age are there in the world? Where are you? What are your numbers?
Oh yeah, so it's actually I don't actually really have the exact number, because we're structured as a holacracy, so very decentralized, which means that and I think we're going to be talking about this later on as well. So anyone can really join if people feel inspired by this, if they want to make a difference in other people's lives. They can do so. So we are in about well over 50 countries now, and I think we have trained over 35,000 volunteers. So we have this training program when people join. Very often people join because they see someone riding a bike either in another city and they want to bring it to their own city, or they see it and they go, I want to volunteer, can I do so? And then we take them through the steps of making sure they're safe riding the bikes, but also that they feel comfortable about having a conversation with a person of old age, because that can be sometimes also mean that you need a little bit of practice. But the reward is amazing, because you do get practice in having conversations with people that you are normally not having a conversation with, and being curious, and also if people are suffering from dementia, it's sometimes about using your imagination instead. And actually even trying to put yourself into their place and pretend maybe that now you are riding the city and it's back in the 1950s or something like that.
It's interesting because the way you talk, I'm thinking that probably first reaction would be that your users, no, are older people, but it's also the volunteers. No?
Yes.
The impact for them must be huge.
Yes.
No?
I totally agree, and that's really one of the things I love about this activity is that there is that mutuality and that equality between the volunteer on one side and our passengers on the other side, and which is actually one of the reasons why often we call our volunteers pilots, so pilots and passengers, because they both really offer their services. Like I feel I get something in return when I've been out riding, and I don't like to feel that maybe I'm just doing this for charity. I like to do this because I feel I get something out of it as well. So in some way, it's actually, I'm doing myself a service as well.
Yes, I would say that for me, it's very recent because we just finished the summit half an hour ago. But I would say that for me, the conclusion of this summit is that a new happy life is about everyone a lifelong contributor. No? And I think this is so much connected with this. No? It's how for elder people that are part of this movement, no? I'm sure the way they feel integrated, they feel part of things is amazing. And for the volunteer doing the work also. So I wanted to ask you some questions related to these days. So we've been talking about a new longevity where you have lifelong well-being connected to health, to sports, or you have lifelong contribution, which is you are able to contribute, improve others' lives, which is also connected with this, and a very important element, which is intergenerational connections. One of the many people here from Stanford University, from other universities are sharing studies that show that if you have intergenerational connections, you live more years. If you are able to contribute and to feel part of this society, you live more years and better years. No? Yes. How do you connect your project with these intergenerational connections and everyone an unstoppable contributor?
Yeah, well, I would say that it's actually almost baked into it from the beginning, because the first person I rode with, she was maybe 40 years older than me. And I've been riding with people who are, I think the oldest one was 107. But mostly it's people of just old age, people in nursing homes, or people who live in their own homes. But we do attract a very significant number of young people as well. And that could be high school students, it could be university students who feel that they want to connect with the city they live in. Very often when you study, you don't really know anything about the history of the city that you live in. And that goes for all places around the world. I know in the US, for instance, there are a lot of people who go and study in different states, but the same thing goes for Europe and other places. And what I've seen is that students who join Cycling Without Age to connect with elders, they not only connect, they also get to learn about the city, they get to learn about the history, and they make friendships as well. And so what I hear as well is that very often the elders say that, well, it's so great to escape the kind of the boring conversations with their peers, like with two elders meeting, it's a lot of conversation about the seas and maybe death and all this gloom and doom. But very often when you mix young people into the mixture, it doesn't have to be very young people, it can also just be people in their, I don't know, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you get this completely new conversation, and you see that the elders are livening up and having fun, and there's a lot of smiles and laughter as well.
And I imagine I am a biker. Every time I can, I move by bike, I commute by bike, and the energy when you're on a bike is higher. No? You are happier. I always tell my friends, if I go to work by bike, I arrive happier. No? So I imagine that the fact of doing exercise also improves the energy, the conversations.
It does, yeah, and it goes for both ways. Actually, we're part of a study right now in Denmark about the impact of these bike rides for the passengers, because a lot of people ask us, well, the passengers, they're not moving, they're just sitting there, but actually something happens with the hormones, the neurotransmitters that we have, which means that even if they're not moving, they're actually getting in better shape. And part of it is the fact that they're using all their senses. They're feeling the wind, they're outside, they get their circadian clock recalibrated. So that means that we also prevent poor mental disease. So there's so many wonderful aspects of this.
I can imagine. A very personal question I wanted to ask you. My father passed away 1.5 years ago, and don't ask me why. I started to search in Google funerals that were different. No, what could I do different for my father? And you can't believe it, but I found a picture of you in a funeral. So I was asking, what was this? What happened there?
Yes, actually, it's to most of you, it may sound a little strange, but so my mother passed away 2 years ago, and she was 82, and she had become she was really a central part of Cycling Without Age, and we took her for many bike rides. I mean, I would take her out several times a week, and sometimes we do these longer bike rides as well, where we like do a little loop into Sweden, and sometimes we go to like Norway and Germany and so on. And she was joining all of that. So the bicycle and this whole community around what we do, she had become such like a central part of it. And then we actually had a conversation maybe about a year before she passed away.
Oh, really?
And she, you know, she wasn't sick or anything, so it wasn't like we were planning her funeral. But then we decided that we wanted to give her a bicycle funeral. So there is this this undertaker in Copenhagen, these two women, and they have this cargo bike hearse. So basically you put the coffin, this big coffin, you put it at the front of the bike, and then you slowly roll through the, you know, the part of the neighborhood of the city where the person who's being buried comes from. And so my mum, we took her around her whole neighborhood, the park, and we were all on bicycles behind her and so on. So I think that was a beautiful moment to celebrate her life.
I'm getting emotional. I recommend anyone watching this interview to look for this picture, because for me, it was like the contrast of what you imagine when you imagine a funeral in a Catholic country like Spain, and this picture, which was exactly the funeral I want. So Ole, let's go very pragmatic. You're gonna be surprised with this that I'm gonna tell you, but I am so impressed with your work and with the fact that this is so easy to multiply, so easy to scale, so easy to join, that I'm seriously thinking in opening a chapter in Madrid after listening to you these days, after this. So how would this work? And especially like if you can explain it in a way that if anyone after listening to this wants to replicate it in their city, in their country, in Latin America, wherever, this is the useful guide for us, and also for people to understand how it works. How do you work, with the elders? How do you find the two sides of
Well, it's and I'm pleased you asked that question, because it is so easy. It is really quite easy to get started. But of course, there are some steps involved, and it's good to learn from some of those people who have already set up chapters. We have maybe about 3,000 chapters right now around the world. But what you basically do is you become an affiliate. And so on our website, cyclingwithoutage.org, you can click in and you can become an affiliate. So we ask you a bunch of questions, but then we also give you help big time. So first of all, we can help you, but we also connect you with a lot of other chapters around maybe your own area, or maybe in different countries as well.
So first step, I go to your website.
Yes.
And I sign as a volunteer, as an affiliate. I want to open a chapter in Madrid.
Yes. And then the next step is I recommend just building a little team so that you're not on your own. Maybe, you need someone with different skills, maybe someone who's good at, I don't know, communications or social media, or someone who's good at fundraising, partnerships or whatever. So maybe 3 or 4 or 5 people is a good size of a team. And then it's about fundraising for one of those tri-shores that they're about 10,000 euros. So they're not cheap, but considering the happiness and the pleasure that they produce, it's not a lot of money. But then once you have that, it's about really just attracting volunteers.
You would recommend starting with 3, 4, 5
bikes?
Yes.
Yeah, it really depends. Maybe two to begin with,
Okay.
and then
I'm ambitious.
Yes, exactly. But I love your ambition because I do also see that chapters that have several bikes, like there is a chapter in San Sebastian, just down the road from here. They have 6 bikes, and they have this vibrant community around the bikes with people of all ages. So you have like young students aged 18. You have people, with children, but you also have people who are just going into retirement who are volunteers. And then they go around to the different nursing homes in San Sebastian and they offer bike rides. And they make partnerships with the nursing homes. They make partnerships with the municipality, with the local university, maybe with the hospital. So there are a lot of different partnerships that you can make to make this more fun. And actually, one thing that not to forget is to make partnerships with cafes and restaurants and bars to make sure that when you ride past, they will be there, maybe serving a little aperitif or a cup of coffee or something like that, because it means a lot that that is part of the experience of what we do, is that we bring people out of their isolation and into the local community. And if they then feel in the local community that they are being welcomed and celebrated, that makes a whole difference.
And that's it. I suppose that you do this in your spare time. Like, I don't need to quit my job.
No, I think most people do it in their spare time because maybe they go riding once a week, maybe once every fortnight. Some people actually go, like we have some students right now in Copenhagen who go maybe 3 or 4 times a week because they get so much pleasure out of it, and they learn so much from the people they ride with, and they actually make friends with them as well. But most people go maybe once a week. But then once the chapter grows, there are some chapters that form just a small, maybe secretariat, someone who maybe is a part-time person who helps coordinate everything and build partnerships and so on. So that happens sometimes as well.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Ole, how after these days talking about new longevity and seeing that Ashoka is committed to building a new movement around everyone a contributor and being cycling without age such a interesting piece, what do you think would be your contribution to this movement? Oh,
well, I think maybe my central point is that we can all be change makers. I know that is something we say all the time in Ashoka, but quite literally in Cycling Without Age, everyone can show up and offer someone a bike ride, lend a hand. I love to work with acts of kindness. And I love to see this as every time you do something like this, and maybe you can even transfer it to other activities as well. If you can think about your own life as someone who can offer acts of kindness to other people, then I think that's where maybe my biggest contribution can be, because that can maybe help people to think about other ways that they can become relevant and help people in different situations. And I've seen so many examples at this summit as well.
Yes, definitely. So I think I'm convinced, really, and it sounds easy. And nowadays things get viral so quick, also bad things. So we need to make an effort to make viral this type of things.
And then also take away the barriers for people to get involved and to achieve change, because I think there is that tendency for people to overcomplicate things. Like I was speaking to some of the young change makers at the summit as well, and they've also asked me the question, so what is your recommendation for us as young change makers? And that is to not get stuck and overthink things, but actually act and do little experiments. And then make sure you fail at some of those experiments as well. I mean, try to be a little bit try to challenge yourself and make a lot of small experiments that you can then study, and if they fail, find out why they failed and then improve. And then make all these little, that's essentially how Cycling Without Age grew as well, is by multiplying tons and tons of small experiments, not just by me, but by everyone who joins, right?
And now that you mentioned the summit, what new ideas have you encountered in this summit? And what are your main takeaways, reflections?
Well, I think it had really given me a lot of thought, because I think we do have a lot of systemic problems that we need to tackle, and also how they relate to climate change, and whether, you know, if we don't tackle climate change, then what is the whole point of improving the lives of the elderly if we don't have any livelihood in a couple of years? So I think I got a lot of inspiration from people saying, well, why don't we also make sure that we really involve elders in tackling climate change, and using that as an opportunity to bring generations together, because I think elders have just as much an incentive to act in that, and I think we're going to be stronger doing it across generations, really.
Interesting. Ole, I heard you speak about slowness.
Yes.
And you made me think, because I think that the reason in these times, no, slowness seems as a bad attribute. Everything needs to be quick, instant, needs to happen now. And bikes, I don't think bikes are slow. I don't associate bikes and slowness. How does this work together?
Well, let me just say, first of all, that I don't mind going fast on a bike, but I love going slow on a bike, because the slow roll is actually it allows us to sense the world around us, and to also allow for the serendipity of life that happens when you're out there on the bike. That, you know, you see something. I mean, usually on one of these bike rides, there are 3 people. So usually 2 passengers at the front and the volunteer riding the bike. And if you see something, it's that opportunity to go, you maybe greet someone, or stop and ponder about something and have a conversation. And so the slowness really, I think it's central to what we all need. I think this world has become so fast, and we're looking for answers really fast all the time. But I think sometimes that can also be bad for elders who may need a little more time to acclimatize and to understand what's going on. And if we slow down, we take them out, and we have this conversation where we're curious, but we're not putting them on the spot. We're waiting until they're ready to have that conversation. Then, I mean, that permeates everything that we do, including the speed when we slow roll around the city, right?
The speed and also enjoying the way, I think we are too obsessed from going from A to B. Yes. And it's not only about going from A to B.
No. And actually, as my great colleague Pernilla said once, she said that we're not going anywhere, so why hurry?
Or we are going everywhere, who knows?
Exactly.
One of the questions I'm reading in here, people are already sharing questions. It's about, okay, this works in Denmark because everyone knows respects bikes in Denmark, but what happens in Madrid, where your life is in risk if you take a bike? How does this work in places where bikes are not that respected, or other places, or even are not that flat?
Well, I asked myself that question as well when I first started this, because I mean, as we've talked about, I didn't really initially plan that this was going to go anywhere else, but then suddenly chapters popped up in Singapore, in Denver, Colorado, in Los Angeles, in London, in the most unlikely places. And I think I literally think everything is possible. Like, we have a chapter in Iceland. They're setting up a chapter in Greenland, for crying out loud. So, we can do it everywhere. It's really just about it. I mean, some people also say, like, I encounter, like I read recently from a chapter saying, was somewhere in Canada that, now it's the end of the season, and this is our last ride, and then we'll see you in April. But I want people to go on these bike rides, even when it's like sub-zero. When it's cold, we have these wonderful duffel blankets people can put on, and canopies, and you go outside and you feel the frost in your cheeks, and it makes you feel alive. It makes the elders feel alive. They come back and they go, "Ooh, that was wonderful," because we have a tendency to overprotect people, right? And the same thing goes for hot weather, where you're on a bike, you feel the breeze. It's such a wonderful feeling, right?
Yes.
There's electric assist on the bike, so even if there are hills like you have here in Bilbao, you can do it.
Okay. And only going back to the summit again, because Welcome Change is a space to share about fellows, and here we had 25 fellows. So I suppose you've met fellows that you had never met before.
Mm-hmm.
And what we are seeing that new longevity and aging land so differently in different places.
Yeah.
What would be 2 or 3 ideas coming from fellows that you've seen these days and made you think differently or see different? One of the.
Where do I start? There are so many
Choose.
wonderful, but there are so many wonderful things. But I was listening to Tessie with the participatory city. Yes. And just the way that her ideas about designing a city for participation, rather than where she grew up in South Africa for segregation, is that we include everyone, that we don't, like, there is this whole concept of dark design in cities where you like take away benches because you don't want homeless people to sleep on them. But then what happens is that elderly people cannot no longer walk to the supermarket because they need a bench. And so you do all these silly things. You create, you create a city where people have to be dependent on a car to go and shop outside the city. And then again, you're making them less accessible to people of age. And I think that was a great inspiration. And I would love to work more with her on how we can together, help cities, push them in the right direction.
We need a welcome change with Tessie Brighton. Yeah. And another idea that you would share?
I loved also Judy's, she had some amazing quotes. I mean, one of the quotes she had that I really loved was that every time, it was an African quote, every time an elderly person dies, their wisdom is like a library. And when they die, that library burns down. And I think that resonated really well with me because what I really have come to understand by writing literally with thousands of elders is that they have so much wisdom, but it's gone to waste in many cases as well. And we need to appreciate that wisdom that resides with elders a lot more.
I agree, and also the need to share it during your life. If we isolated them from society and they have all this wisdom, it is true that the whole library dies. It's burned. What do we do between during the life so they can share and they have the space to share and all of us to learn?
And then we put elders. I mean, that's part of the systemic change that we need to accomplish, is that we take away the way that we built society that basically puts elders into either isolation in their own homes or in nursing homes, where the celebration of life with happiness and conversation and fun and unexpected things, they don't happen there right now. And that can be changed so easily. And I think those bike rides, they can help that. So we can basically do that one bike ride at a time.
Yes. I'm having so many questions that I need to choose, but one I loved was, do you see an opportunity of cycling without age to help address the high rates of polarization? Because I imagine we are normally used to talk only with those that think like us. So here I would imagine that it could be an opportunity. Are you thinking about it? Are you seeing it?
Yes, I do.
Or maybe your new project for next year.
No, we do see that. And we actually use this as, in many ways, when I say we, because we are a holacracy, and I'm very often referencing wonderful stuff that I witness in chapters taking place around the world. But including, for instance, immigrants or refugees into cycling without age, and giving them an opportunity to give back to society. But also, there are a lot of countries around the world that are experiencing this polarization. One little fun polarization that I noticed was that we have a chapter in Liverpool in England, and they have 2 football teams, Liverpool and Everton. And the local chapter lead there, he was riding with an old Everton fan and an old Liverpool fan. They were both sitting next to each other, and of course they have been fighting each other viciously for decades, watching the football matches. He put them together, and then he basically took them around on a route through Liverpool, through the from Anfield Road, where Liverpool plays, to Goodison Park, where Everton plays, and they were sharing stories. And suddenly there was this, they were saying to each other, well, we've hated each other for decades, and now we're sitting there having these wonderful conversations. I know that this is on a lighter level, but I think it can happen also, political polarization and other areas.
Could be interesting. Imagine, people that voted for Brexit, with a volunteer that needs to understand why they did, and well, everywhere in the world there's polarization. So maybe an interesting area, no? For you to think about.
Yes, absolutely.
So Ole, a question I always need to be, when were you elected as a Ashoka Fellow?
In 2017.
And what has it meant for you to be an Ashoka Fellow?
Oh, it has meant a lot, because it has given me, I think maybe the most amazing benefit of being an Ashoka Fellow is the network that suddenly opens up to you, the wealth of people that you can really just call up or send an email, and you're in a conversation with someone who is a potential expert on something particular that maybe you are grappling with. But at the same time, I also feel that I can be a bit of assistance to a lot of people. So I do get a lot of people who maybe want me to, share my opinion about something, or maybe just have a Zoom call about something, or meet them. So there are quite a few amazing benefits of that. And then, of course, the Ashoka organization. I have the New Longevity Summit here, which was absolutely amazing. And I love this. And this is so great.
So
that basically half the time of my Ashoka Fellowship, we've been on a lockdown, right? Mm-hmm. And now we're back, and we can actually meet physically and hug each other and share stories. And it is much better. It is a much better way of really internalizing and understanding other people's projects when you are actually meeting face to face.
And we always think that the identity of being an Ashoka Fellow makes a difference, no? Is it right? Like, what do you think are the attributes that people think when you say, hey, I'm Ole, I'm an Ashoka Fellow?
It definitely has become a part of the identity as well, because I think it means that there are other people who trust you, who count on you. So it is, at the same time, it is also a great responsibility. You feel that there is a responsibility that you cannot escape, and that I would never want to escape. But I think it goes both ways. And so I think it is a wonderful jacket to wear. That's a lovely way to finish this conversation. I commit to write an email to this website and offer myself as a volunteer. I would love to be an affiliate, and I would love that after this welcome change, imagine 10, 15, 20 people offer themselves as a volunteer, and we can all share our experience. So thank you very, very much, Ole. Is there something else you want to say? No, Anna, I'm pleased that I was able to share my story with you. Thank you very much. I hope we can have many more live welcome changes. You will receive soon the recording of this one and information of the coming ones. Thank you, everyone. Take care.